Hello, beautiful light-filled souls, and happy holidays. This interview with near-death experiencer Ken Lloyd, an energy healer, is my gift to you because I want you to experience his healing at the end. I was blocked in certain ways to light language because of a variety of reasons, but I met Ken in Hawaiian IANS, that group, which is a fabulous group. Consider if you have extra donations that you want to give, donate to Sean Lether and all that he does for the IANS community. For free. We all spread consciousness in our own ways, and Ken Lloyd is definitely spreading consciousness and opening people's minds and abilities to miraculous healing. He had a near death experience that's a little unusual, in that he was moved aside, and then 22 soul aspects of his higher self or his oversoul collective came in. And he continues to learn and grow as a healer with his connection to guides. He channels higher frequencies, really to spark people into their own profound healing journeys. So he's a fascinating guest, and let's dive in to this. And also, if you like my t-shirt, this is Archangel Michael. I worked with many different artists from around the world because we all come from our own background and may see angels in certain ways that apply to our background, but someone from an indigenous culture may see them differently. So I've had a lot of fun working with artists and creating these t-shirt designs, mainly because I just like the idea of people walking around spreading angelic energy and peace. So may you be blessed. Take good care of yourself during this holiday season, whether you're with a ton of people or whether you are with very few people or just some animals. Just take care of you first. Thank you. And secondly, tell me how that healing works. And
Yeah.
we'll jump into your near death experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So the healing for me takes a couple different flavors, if you will. There's the flavor where I am able to go in and I can see the thing happening to you, right? And I see it the way the universe presents it. So our own journeys, our own spirituality, the universe will always show us symbols or show us whatever the things that we can relate to and understand. So for me, I always see creepy crawlies if that's the case. You call them attachments, right? I'll see things like that. But I'll get a number in my head. And for instance, maybe you have some ancestral issues attached to your neck. I'm able to go in there and I'll say the number out loud and then I'll call the angels in. And imagine two little stick figures running across my screen, two ancestors, right? And they always show up as the same. Like I'm not looking for the story. And there'll be a halo over their head. And the angels will reach down and they'll pull the energy out of that stick figure. Okay. And then what's left of the stick figure will turn into a little trauma ball, I call it. And I remove the trauma ball. It takes 7 or 8 seconds. No matter how, it could be, 20 different ancestors. It takes the same amount of time. But that process I use for past life attachments, past life connections, right? They do the same thing for childhood trauma as well. So these little stick figures will show up when we have these things trapped in our body or in our field. Emotions, I'll be able to reach in there and pull an emotion out. Like you would pull, if you were to reach into a lava lamp and pull one of those little balls out of a lava lamp, I pull the emotions out of the body like that as well, right? But I use light language in most everything I do. Now, with the light language, I'm communicating with that attachment, right? Maybe I'm communicating with your ancestor or your past lives, right? But I'm communicating with the emotions, the heart, the brain, whatever it is in the body, right? And I am able to use this light language to talk to your team, to get permission to heal you, right? Because sometimes we can't be healed if there's something we have to experience. The greatest healer can show up in the world to allow the healing to come through them because no healer heals anybody. We're just an open vessel. So if you have to have the experience that can heal, and they'll let me know, right? But the same thing with your off-planet teams, right? Your ET teams, whatever shows up. Light language is the common denominator. Is that the word I need? Common denominator in everything I do when I communicate and do the healing.
Do you think that you can help people get into a slightly better timeline? So, say, I believe that when I had my near death experience, I had a range. I could have had death, to, tremendous trauma to being able to walk and live a pretty good life. So, I think I felt like in that moment there was a range, but I had to have the near death experience.
Well, the same thing, right? So my mission, if we want to talk about missions for a moment, is millions and millions of people, right? In order to do that, I have to be able to touch the energy, touch the lives of those millions of people. And it's not so much that my team has the mission of coming in and healing someone completely of everything, right? They have a mission to come in and heal the most important things that are preventing you from moving forward in your own ascension journey. They are here to, they call it the spark. They're here to light that spark in those individuals so they can discover who they are and what their mission or purpose may be. And it often shows up in the form of a miracle. Because when someone shows up and they have a condition that wasn't, to their knowledge, something that could be addressed by Western medicine, and then 30, 60, 90 seconds later, it no longer appears, it sets them on their own course, just like me. What just happened? How do I get that again? It boggles the mind. And this is what begins the accelerated ascension for the planet, or one of the things.
I love that because, my near death experience, I was told to come back and remind people to turn on their lights, to be the light of their own healing, to be the light and to be in that flow of light. I was not spiritual before my near death experience at all. I was agnostic. Were you agnostic, open? Who were you before?
Neutral.
Neutral.
I didn't have an opinion necessarily. I guess I had a little bit of opinion. So spirituality was not something I'd really known. I knew what a psychic was, probably from the TV or something, right? But I hadn't gone to one. And religion frustrated me. Never studied it. It frustrated me because I'm a logical guy, a three-time cybersecurity guy, right? So I'm like, well, how can somebody by hand rewrite a document? I don't know how many times he rewrote it over the thousands of years, right? Without influencing what was going on at the time of the writing, right? There are certain belief systems or certain processes or certain things that the human collective was involved in at that point 1,000 years ago. Well, that's going to go into that document, whether or not it was part of the original piece or not. So I struggled with how authentic at its core completely is that document. And I never looked, but this is what kept me from looking.
I get that. Like as a literature major, I mean, I can make those connections, and also I was very logical. I would have gone into science, but that wasn't my field, so I was going to go into law, but no interest in it, and totally understand where you're coming from. So set up the day and the days before your near death experience, what happened, and then how it's evolved for you. And I think I heard in an interview that like right before your near death experience, you were talking with ancestors. Was that, or that you felt them show up?
No, no, I never had any of those experiences. And I
Oh,
didn't feel anybody show up necessarily, right? So it's what took place here, the setting the stage here. So three-time cybersecurity guy. I built three companies, did it on my own, self-taught, didn't go to college, right? Learned how to write the software, and I always had these things. I'm one of the original inventors of antivirus and anti-spyware. You'll find my name nowhere. I was an extreme introvert. I didn't want to talk to anybody, not even my clients. I wrote the software, I drafted the patents, wanted nothing to do with anyone. So understand that about my life. Now, the third company, very, very stressful. Business partner was stressful, the whole situation. It lasted longer than I wanted it to. And I had been diagnosed with the pituitary tumor, right? And that was from, I was getting these ice pick headaches. And then I was passing out with my eyes open, right? And seeing myself fall, unable to move. Like I'm having these things happen. And I didn't tell anybody, by the way. Didn't tell the family that this was happening. And but it was about this time, 7 years. Well, I think I'm coming up on an anniversary, maybe 8 years ago now, whatever the number is. But 2018, so 7 years ago, I get triggered. Typical day. Business partner calls me, something happens, get triggered. And this time I needed to go lay down. I fist clenched. I was very angry at that time, right? Nothing was going the way I thought it was supposed to. And as soon as I hit the bed, my stomach arched in the air, like an upside down letter U, and I felt something come out of my body. I was locked in position. I couldn't move. To me, it was a solid 2 minutes. Maybe it was longer. I don't know. I couldn't move my body, and I felt this energy coming out of my abdomen. No idea what that was. I do now. But I passed out, fell asleep. Woke up the next day just a little more peaceful. And everything shifted after that. So let me talk about that moment in retrospect now. Didn't know this information then, I know it now. So if the thing that I felt in the abdomen was my team removing all of my life trauma at once. And I had a lot of life trauma. I had a birth defect that I call it a birth condition, not a birth defect anymore. That still impacts me. So, my life wasn't easy. No one's life is easy. We all have our things. But this was removed. All of my lower vibrational emotional attachment to memories was also removed, right? So I have memories, but I don't have an energetic attachment to those memories. So imagine the idea of that tunnel opening, and most people, at least that I've experienced, they go over that tunnel, and then they have their communication. They have their meeting, they have the review, they have the story being provided to them. They have that experience, right? Whether it's be 1 second or 30 minutes into the near death. That's not what happened to me. Metaphorically, I don't think this is actually how it happened, but metaphorically, the tunnel opened and one decided to come over to me. So they came over on this side of the tunnel. And that particular version of me, it was another future version of me, inserted himself into my field. And they began changing the way I see the world. And what I mean by that is the next day, I started Googling what happened. What is spirituality? What is a psychic? What is an aura? What is remote viewing? What is this? What is that? I mean, I went down that rabbit hole, right? Trying to understand this new area of interest that I never ever had. And at the same time, they turned off my ability or my interest in computers completely. So this is what I made my living, 27 years. And now I didn't even want to check my email. So yeah,
So, were you experiencing like heightened sensitivity to things? Were you going through different changes, or was this just you weren't sure at
no,
that moment?
I didn't know what was going on.
Wow.
I just had this renewed passion. I couldn't stop trying to figure it out. And that put me in front of psychics, right? And the psychics in the area really didn't know what was going on. What happened here is they began giving me little breadcrumbs, just enough information to say, oh, something did happen. Why don't you dig a little deeper? And so I did that. And then I ended up having a QHHT session with the Dolores Cannon stuff. And then I brought the higher self in. I don't remember the message, but I had met a woman the day before who teaches multidimensionality. And in the message from the higher self, they said the girl will teach him. That's interesting. So of course I signed up for the how do I be a multidimensionality person? What even is that, right? And the first 6 months or so was this person telling me what's wrong with my body, right? Never heard of detoxing before in my life. So this first 6 months was me learning to detox all the organs, especially the heavy metal detox. That that was the key. Once I went through the heavy metal detox, and I went through it for probably 4, 5, 6 months. I don't know how long. I just kept doing it. I couldn't stop. Kept doing the psyllium husk and the bentonite clay every day, right? Every day. And all of a sudden, I end up in front of another medical intuitive, and they say there's something going on with your teeth. It's the metal in your teeth. Now, I'm from the 80s, so the metal in our mouth was real metal. And what they told me is every time I chewed, the metal in the mouth was releasing back into the body, the very thing I just removed with the heavy metal detox. So I spent a lot of money, had all of them done, and 3 weeks later, I could feel crystals in my hand. That was really the first, oh, I could feel something. And that took a year and a half before I got to that point. Now, from there, this person took me on journeys, right? I'll make it up for a moment. Go to Mars, go into the middle of Mars, go to this planet, go do this thing. And every single thing I was doing instantly, right? And she was seeing it as well. And I don't think she realized it at the time, but I could sense it that she's like, this isn't normal, right? That this guy's showing up and he's boom, 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 all these things. And for me, I'm like, this woman's making it up. She loves my money, right? I didn't realize what was really taking place. So I began getting intuition. I began getting some information, but it trickled in and I struggled. I'm like, what is going on? Somebody fill me. And I'm hearing all these people meditating. I couldn't meditate, but I went through the practices and finally I ended up getting a download, one of my first downloads, right? And I remember sitting there and at this point, I had already learned that I could do healing. I'd read a book. I did more than that. But I read a book and I'm doing all the exercise in the book and I'm looking at the author. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take this guy's course. And I took the course, did all the work with no effort, did all 25 people with no effort. I'm like, wow, there's really something happening. So now that I could see in the body differently then than I do now, I get the message to go into DNA number 3. So the ladder in DNA. And I go into number 3. I'm like, okay, what now? They're like, they showed me these drum symbols, and I know they're not called symbols. The drummers out there, musicians out there, don't shoot me, but it's the metal things that slap together, right? But they're vertical, and they had 4 on one side, 4 on the other side, and they said go in to left and grab just that one out and move it to a different position, and I did that, and they all started vibrating. The bottom of the DNA dropped down to something just went on forever and ever. And when I looked up, there had been a portal that opened up. Again, these are visuals, not in my meditation room in real life, but in visuals, right? And at the end of this, what felt like a 30-foot portal was these 4 incredibly tall ETs, right? And I later found out they call themselves the KREGS, and it's KREGS. And they are seventh dimensional beings from the Pegasus system. I'm one of them. I'm like, wow, not a single page on the internet that talked about these beings. And what they had done at that point is they began shifting my physical body, right? So what I mean by that is I hold energies in my physical body. So when a person typically channels, it comes down and through.
So, explain to me a little bit more what the KREGS are and how you are one. So, is that what came in during your near-death experience?
Right. Well, no, but this is the awareness
Oh,
of what I am. What I later found out that the Craigs were kind of a stepping stone. Their job was to raise my frequency of my physical body to the point where I could move through the 17th dimension, all right, into the 24th dimension. Apparently, that's the playground I play at. I don't know much details about that, but this is what they tell me. So for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, the Craigs would modify my body. So I hold the frequencies. Now, I found out that when somebody channels healing words, they're a vessel comes through, goes through. That's not how it works with me. Words, yes, but that energy and that coding that comes through the light language and through my healing stays in my field, which is 580 feet around me. So as I work on you and I do your next thing, I'm creating software programming, but human programming, a way for these higher frequencies to come through and learn to work with the human body. When somebody comes into my field, etherically or in person, they get the codes they're ready for. So I hold frequencies.
so you can't just take everyone's trauma away the way your trauma was taken, in that moment, or could you?
Definitely I cannot. This is what they try. This is above and beyond the scope of his work. So they're always there. They're 22. So let me talk more about the process, right?
Yeah.
So as I said, one came through. At least that's how I saw it. Now I didn't see it then. April 1st of last year and a half ago or so, a little more than that, I was in a meditation process and 12 more came in at that time. and they entered a chrysalis in my body, a place for them to cocoon like a butterfly is how I understand it, right? And this was done by another practitioner. I didn't know it was going to happen. And then in December 12th of last year, so I just had the anniversary, my higher self and the oversoul stepped into my body. Now that was the only time I ever knew the walk-ins were coming in. And what I mean by that is in the meditation room, they had me 8 o'clock. I got the message to go meditate. I don't get messages. I didn't. So I knew something was going on. So I sat down and they immediately locked me in position. Couldn't move a muscle, couldn't twitch, couldn't move an eyelid. And I could feel the energies coming down. And I started asking them questions. And they said, now's not the time for that either. We're busy. And they shut down my ability to think. So 13 minutes of literally empty mind as I'm feeling all these energies come through, right? Now, if you know anything about walk-ins in the audience, okay, there are a couple different kinds. There is the soul exchange. So you have a near death, you leave, you high five the one coming in, not necessarily, and they come in, it's all prearranged. And the one coming in is going to deal with your trauma. And it's gonna leave Dodge, right? It's gonna go for a divorce. It's going to get out of the situations. It's going to move and become what it's here to do. And it happens fast, right? That's called a soul exchange, one out, one in. It didn't happen to me like that. I never left. So as I'm reading about walk-ins, I'm thinking, oh, wow, check it out. I got lucky, right? I don't have a life shift, a life change, like great marriage, great job. All these things were just perfect in my life. And 12/12, that changed. 2 weeks after that, right after the holidays, they said, wait till after the holidays. And I think it was January 5th or 6th, I don't know. And sat the wife down and daughter says, I have to leave. I have to get a divorce. Right. So it was pretty traumatic. I did not see that coming. Didn't see it coming. Not only that, but I had sold everything I owned at that moment forward. Except for the 3 suitcases I had, I sold all my vehicles, the home, all my assets, and went to Mexico for 3 months. I'm sorry, for 6 months for integration. Now, remember, at this point, I've got 14 in me or 13 in me, and now they're shifted and moved me into this new vibration. But in order to do that, they need to get rid of all those things that were of lower vibration. Now, I didn't think they were lower. I was pretty happy, but they were. I have 22 high frequency consciousnesses in my body. I'm the one vibrating the lowest. So they need to move me up. And to do this, they had to remove the old in order to bring the new in. So in Mexico, in Yalapa, Mexico, in April, I had 9 more come in. All right. And 3 of them from the highest to the high angelic realm. Go ahead.
Yeah. So explain to me soul aspects. Are these part of your higher self? Aspects of your higher self. Some people believe that, they are one of 9 people walking the earth, that aspects of their higher self, I
Yeah.
don't know about that. I do believe in a higher self. So in the sense that we can bring in more information and more understanding, is that like just an understanding that stays with you, or how does it work for you?
Not every one of us are part of Ken's original soul design, if you will. Yes, the oversoul, kapoko amaparia, yes, the higher self, and many other aspects. But there are others that are inside of him. He is configured differently than most. His body is designed to be a true vessel in the fact that, excuse me, as he's been called, the hollow bone. He is configured in such a way that the energies that need to show up for the planet, we say energies, consciousness, that need to show up for the planet, not just the individual in front of him, are in his field, if you will, in his physical body. They are not necessarily full aspects of him. Yes, he has soul incarnations across all of these entities, if you will. But they are not him, though. We want to make sure that the audience recognizes he is a conduit. He is a battery storage, if you will, for these energies to come down and hold space in a more permanent way on the planet right now. And yes, to answer the question, there are 12 ascended masters that are part of his team, and there are 8 other Christed ETs, if you will, to represent the 8 major species that are working with your disclosure process right now. And then we have the oversoul and the higher self. And yes, there will be more. Ken's aware of 45 at one point, and he's also aware that we are going to cycle out as the planet needs different energies. We will all cycle out and more will come in. This will happen many times in his life.
Fascinating. So, when you're working with people, are we affected by a variety of ET energies and different individuals?
You're all impacted by everything that's happening out there and down here, but the extent of how you're being impacted is very negligible. And we want you to understand that they are working on the human collective, if you will, changing and we say escalating, accelerating is a more appropriate word, the evolution of the human collective. The changes that are happening there do trickle down into you. So yes, you are all impacted, but not in a way that you can tangibly notice.
And why do you think some people are called to do light language or learn it? And just like anything in spirituality, I think that there are people who are better at it, and I've shared your video with a couple of people, and people have gone, wow, this is next level light language. This is
Yeah.
level.
So, but we want you to recognize the idea of the carpenter, the idea of the farmer, the idea of the fireman. Every single one of them have different tools, and not everyone needs the same tool. There are millions and millions of you that need to be on the ground working at the heart, and the heart takes the eyeball, it takes the words, it takes the hug. There is that. They don't need the light language. And then we have the others using the light language for the activations, for the information, for the messages. Tool, tool, tool. It really depends on what tool you need for your job.
So continue with your journey.
Yeah, so here I am. I'm in Yelp, and 9 more come in. Didn't feel it. I was told I had someone with me who was managing that process, and no, I'd say managing, but was part of that process. And I'm like, oh, I came to Yelapa and didn't feel anything, and I've got 22 in me, but I feel the same as I did the day before. What is going on here? Okay. So that was in Yelapa in April, and then I spent almost 3 months in Tulum after that. All right, and for whatever reason, I have a Mayan connection. I have a Christed Palladian that was part of some Mayan work they wanted me to do, some clearing. I don't normally do those type of things, but that needed to be done. So here I am in Tulum, and I got there, and about 3 or 4 days later, I get the message from the team, you're going to do Bufo and Cambo. Okay, plant medicines. And Cambo is frog poison, I believe, and that's the one where they burn the holes in the arm and they apply the poison, and it causes you to purge. All right, just a lot of purging, and it's over in about 20 minutes or so. But the idea here is it's actually detoxing at the cellular level. It's opening up the cells in the body rapidly so you can purge everything out of it. Okay, made it through that pretty good. And 2 hours later, they had me do the Bufo, and apparently it's uncommon to do both the same day, right? But it's interesting, here I am putting these plant medicines on my body, and I don't like plant medicine. I do not like to hallucinate in any way, shape, or form, period, right? So, but I'm as relaxed as can be. I've heard stories about people doing the Cambo and doing the Bufo and, just totally freaking out, right? Because they're having these, and that was not the case. I get the video of the whole thing. I'm literally sitting there with my arms crossed and the entire time, absolutely incredibly peaceful. So, Cambo. 2 hours later, I do the Bufo. Now, the Bufo is a DMT that you smoke. And listen, I did it at a facility in Mexico, legal, weird, but I say that because this isn't me. So they take me through this thing, and it's about a 15-minute or a 20-minute ordeal. And when you do this, I want to say it kicks in about 10 seconds after you inhale. Like it's just that fast. Lay down, pass out. Not really. So many fractals of energy, right? And I say this from the 80s. We used to have those little kaleidoscope things we'd look in, right? That's literally what the room felt like. But it was so bright, it's like you wanted sunglasses. I saw my ego being walked over. He wasn't happy. And then when I came out of it about 15 minutes later, I saw all 22 of them in the tent, in the teepee. Right now, 21 of them were fuzzy. but the number 22 off to my right felt as real as possible. I opened my eyes and I saw him. I closed my eyes and I'm still like, "You're really here." I opened my eyes and when obviously when the DMT wore off, couldn't see it, but they're telling me this is coming as well. And they gave me some messages. And one of the messages that I really resonate with is everything I had done for healing up to that point was nothing but a sniff of the aroma of what's cooking in terms of the healing that's coming for humanity through this vessel that's been coded or programmed or designed to do these things, right? So I'm excited and I've been seeing more and more. The when they did that, they opened the cells, they removed the ego, they merged into my physical body. The ego had to be out of the way and the cells had to be open. So they are in me. I don't have to drop into channel, right? I don't have to be in meditation in order to get information. They're always there. And they are part of my personality, right? They are part of every single thought I have. They don't interfere in a way that I recognize, right? They do help me move through decisions in ways that are more high vibratorial to match what's coming, but they don't tell me those things. So they're part of my body.
So what's interesting is like instead of having a lot of near-death experiences, outside of your body, you've continued to have them after your near-death experience. And that would be my guess, why the hallucinogens weren't that big of a deal. They just allowed you to think. I think a lot of near-death experiencers who try hallucinogens are like, oh yeah, I know this. Like,
And that's how I felt. I'm like, I've already died once. Like, I've already died once. I'm good.
Yeah. Come on in. I'm gonna talk to my angels and ancestors and different people with a lot more clarity. Lot, like visual clarity, perhaps.
Yeah, in complete agreement with that. And so the healing continues to shift and change, right? And we do have a few healing for your guests towards the end, right? Um, the the idea of me doing what I call the manual work is going to begin shifting and changing, right? And let me kind of explain. When I first realized I could heal, and again, please, people, it's not me, it's them. I just use the term I heal, right? But when I learned I could do these, and when I would work on somebody's shoulder, it would take me the entire hour to find out, oh, it was an emotion. Well, how do I remove that emotion? Do I talk to it? What do I do, right? So it took me forever just to work on one little simple thing. And maybe I had great results, temporary results. And now that same thing takes me seconds. Or I don't have to do it at all. So they are continuing to accelerate the way I do my healing, and they are now looking for me to step out of the way. So if you've attended my groups, when you're in those groups, it's 20, 25 minutes, I think, of crazy, intense light language, and these different beings will come through this hollow bone, depending on who's in the audience, by the way. So when you're in the audience, you get what you need. So they'll continue to do that. The groups, I don't know what's going on, right? I don't know who's got what condition in the group. And this is the beauty of me stepping out of the way. Now they can come in and they can do the work, but when I see it, I expect them to do this thingy I'm looking at. But there could be a bunch of other thingies that needs to be done.
Can you ask them if, all the people who see this video and receive this healing, no matter what time, I'm sure they work without a time space, will get what they need?
They're going to get the spark that they're looking for, and that really is the mission. Yes, many of them are going to be healed of the conditions that they need to be healed of, and we're going to use the word discomfort for the moment, and they will go away in a more permanent fashion for many of these folks. But when we say start the spark, if you will, we are literally there to give them the idea that they can heal, and they can heal in different ways. And then once they get that spark, they will then kind of along the same way that Ken did, not as intense as he did, they'll be able to begin their own healing journey. And for those on their journey, they're going to be able to accelerate that journey, knowing the blockages are now removed that are preventing that from happening. Our goal isn't just the healing. It's not just the body. It is literally expanding your consciousness and removing the things that keep your consciousness locked in place. We are hitting all three layers, the astral, the physical, and the emotional layers, the energy all around you. It's not just the shoulder, as Ken says.
So, when you work on something like abundance issues around people, the way I see healing as a theta healer is, we have ancestral programs, we have past life programs, we have core programmings. The core programs are really tough because you can be sleeping and hear someone say something on the radio. You can be under, anesthesia and hear doctors saying, "Oh, this," they can almost curse you with their words, and it becomes a
Mhm.
premonition, or it becomes a program. What is the hardest to remove from people? Like, is it a
Their
belief?
ego, their
There you
ego.
go. So are people attached to the struggle of this life? There's a lot of people I hear saying things like, "Oh, no matter what, I just can't pay my bills. I'm just getting more and more in debt." I
That feeds the ego, and this is what they're telling me. And so, well, let's be clear. I see ego as a consciousness inside of you, right? And it's there to protect you, regardless of how it shows up, right? And it really is overly protective, right? But it also needs to have the desire of being wanted and needed. All right. And it gets that trigger, if you will, that charge from making the body sore, from making the body ill. And what will happen here is I'll remove the things that I see, the ancestors, the past lives, or whatever it is. I just use shoulder, right? In the shoulder, and they're like, no, nothing's changed. And I'm like, okay, close your eyes. When you close your eyes, I'll have them do this. Ask her ego to show him or her to you as a little child. And when that child shows up, I will have them say something as simple as, do you feel loved? Right? And the ego will say, yes, it's lying. They are really tricksters, right? Or no. And that's when it happens. They'll send it love. They'll do it 2 or 3 times. And now the ego this is eating up this love. It wants more. We will take the ego, put it into your heart, and lock the door after it signs a contract. And the contract is simple. I will give you more love today, but you'll have to agree to not interfere with the healing energies being delivered. And when that happens, this releases. And now they'll do that in the morning, they'll do it at night just to begin that process. So I find the hardest struggle is the ego because I can do light language all day long for the ego. And unless the healing's coming through the back door, something bigger than the ego, we've got to get it out of the way. It happens like less than 2% of my cases.
Do you think that we could all benefit from doing that, though, and just putting our ego in our hearts and sending it love and saying, "Don't interfere,"
Well, absolutely.
our highest self? Yeah.
It is highly recommended you do that because what it's going to do, and it has done this for Ken as well, it kind of gives you an understanding of how you're feeling on the inside. And what we're trying to say is let's assume that for a moment that the ego is representing those aspects inside of you that are struggling. When you see those pieces that need the healing, that need the love, that you could do it actually through the ego. So yes, build a relationship with them, but don't ask them to do things for you. They are tricksters. I added the trickster word, not them.
So beyond the past life, core programming, genetic programming, ancestral programming, what common blocks do you see in people?
I see a lot of implants. I
Ah,
see implants in the field, ET implants, ET, contracts, relationships, right, that show up. Um, I do
why do they
see
implant things in our field?
some of it's tracking and some of it is waiting. Kanya for their activation, right? And it's interesting because they really don't need to do that, right? Because if they've got a true connection to you, they don't need an implant, right? They can come through the DNA because they're part of you, right? Or through your team. So other times that those implants we put there by other contracts. So I call these subcontractors, right? So the idea you have somebody who has a contract with you that has the ability in that contract to manipulate your energy. Typically, it's not in a healthy way, right? They will sublease that out, right? And say, you go ahead, you can put an implant in there. You can go ahead and put a creepy crawl in there. You can throw a soul overlay in there. Like they do these things. So when we work on them, the 22, we will go to the original contract holder and break that, and they all come down.
And So sometimes I have helped clear people who have done ayahuasca or different hallucinogens and picked up a spirit that they can't get rid of, that's still talking to them. The attachment. Do you see attachments in that sense? I feel like there's a lot of souls that do not transition. They stay around us.
Well, it's beyond just souls that transitions. So
Yeah.
we're going to use the word consciousness. We when you say souls that transition, for us, it's kind of things of the fourth density or the fourth dimension, not the fourth density, but the fourth dimension where things just kind of stick there until they move on further. The attachments that Ken sees are not those who have passed away. It is the other entities, the other planets, the other things that are actually outside of the human awareness. Those are the attachments that he removes. And yes, they can be what you call darker energies.
Have we moved past that era or that time in which we believed, oh, this witch could curse me or this person could think bad thoughts, that we bless and curse one another with words? Like I do work on protection. A lot of people do just cleanse ourselves daily from energy. Um, can we get better at protection? Are we vulnerable to, people sending us things?
In this time in your era, you are actually more vulnerable than you were in the past. So you have to think of the idea that no one here is anonymous anymore, where they could have been in the past, first of all. The amount of lower vibrational energy that is floating around the planet at any point in time really does give away to the potential of those who are in those low vibrational energies to speak those spells, to speak those words, to curse those things. So it is more prevalent now than before. In many cases, though, they are very minimal impact. There are still some very, very powerful things out there that can cause this. So we are not through that yet. As we raise the frequency of the evolution of humanity, which Ken has spoken about, will take about 30 years from this point forward. As we do that, those ideas of those lower vibrational emotion, comments, and thoughts will eventually just fade away. Not completely, but certainly not at the level they are at this point.
And how do you daily protect yourself and how do you suggest we do? So, I envision just a light bubble around me which nothing can penetrate, and anything that tries is just sent to the light for healing. That's my visual.
So I feel like I've got a cheat code. All right. Now, I don't do those practices. Right? I show people how to do them. I've got there the way I see it, this is me speaking, right, is that they're in my physical body. There is a vested interest to protect this body, okay, from those energies. Now, I had to protect it in the 3D, right? I'm not going to get my car and go smash it intentionally, right? So I have to handle the 3D protection, but they're handling the energetic protection. Now, I will tell you, along my journey, I have been attacked, especially as I start dealing with these other denser, darker energies, which the team is now shifting off to other folks. I've done it, so I've got the coding, but I don't need to do it as a core competency. The attacks that I've received were always pretty intense. In fact, April 1st, when the 12 came in, the person that was facilitating that, there was an entity that jumped from her into me. And I knew it was going to happen because I talked to it 3 hours before and I told it, you don't have permission to come into my body. I see you. Did it anyways. And my team shut down my gifts for 10 days. I couldn't do anything, no matter what I tried. And it took 5 weeks to remove that attachment. Now, here's the interesting thing. I had just quit my very, very well-paying job. I sold them a company. You write your own contracts. To quit a job like that is borderline therapy. I did. And then my gifts were turned off for 10 days. Think about the awareness of that. As my friend says, the bigger levels, bigger devils. And please don't take that word to heart too much, but it just gives you the idea that the more work you do, you're going to attract more powerful things that match your energy, the opposite. I've reached a point now, and they've confirmed, I still think there's potential, where there's so much protection around me from them because of the large mission that unless I actively engage and bring that into a poor decision, I should be okay. Does that make
Well,
sense?
yeah. So, when I was interacting after my near-death experience with entities, and I did a lot of ghost clearings, with my friends in Austin, and a lot of entity removal, I've been attacked too. I always just bring in that pure light, God, the ascended masters, the absolute beauty, and that generally sends all negativity away. There
Mhm.
has been one time I freaked out because it was something I didn't recognize and I had to work with a healer, and that was an implant. And so that's just not within my realm of understanding.
Mhm.
And so that was years ago. But generally, I tell people there's nothing to fear. The minute you start fearing that you're not going to get through it or it's going to overtake you, then that's when you give something
It
power.
is.
I I also tell the story of I did John of God's protocol many years ago. The entity came to me. I asked it if it could heal me. It said no. And I said, in the name of Jesus, the name of God, get out of here. Like
Yeah.
you are
A
not
little dirty
allowed to
there,
touch
right?
me.
Yeah.
Like the goodbye. And then, like, about a year later, all that stuff came out about his trafficking and all that. And so
Yeah.
I do believe we can, at a very simple level, call on God's love, call on that white light, call on that for protection.
You can. There is something I teach people. It's called the mirror bubble. It's on YouTube. You can look it up. It's pretty common, right? But a really good friend of mine, Patricia Walls, has made it even simpler. She says, she says, shields up, mirrors out.
I
She says, sometimes it's just that easy.
like that.
Shields up, mirrors out. Thank you, Patricia.
Yeah, two Trishas.
So, right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
We're noble souls. That's the meaning of the name.
Hmm.
So, are you ready to provide healing? And do you want to just make it general for what people need? Or do you want to? I think people are really struggling with two things. This is me, just from what I'm hearing. What to do with their future next, how to change with this evolving world, and two, abundance issues.
Hmm.
How do you both care about the world and deal with the fact that there seems to be a ruling class that doesn't pay taxes? This has been going on for a while, a middle class that's fighting one another. And I think it was George Carlin who said this, and then the poor just to keep the middle class working hard.
Yeah, I do remember that speech by George. The team is saying they want you to drop the context around the idea of the abundance coming in, and then they will use your intention as well as the physical healing. So, folks, this is going to be easy. I get to do all the work. So, if you're driving, don't close your eyes. But for the rest of you, I would just like you to drop in. Just close your eyes. There's nothing magical here. I do that with a giggle. I like you to visualize tree roots growing from the bottom of your heart. Please allow those tree roots to grow down your torso and through each of the legs, further down until you get to Mother Earth. Grow those tree roots into the ground, further down, all the way to the middle of the earth. And when you get there and you see the core of the earth, I want you to wrap those tree roots around counterclockwise 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. I'd like you to visualize a black room, no windows, no doors, just a nice black room. And in that black room, ask to see a hologram of your body. I like to see mine as neon blue, floating in the room. Miyata ka kashikupu. In the rest of the room, I want you to now notice the stars showing up, the galaxies, the planets, perhaps even ETs. And for the next few moments, just hang out. Notice what you notice and allow. Amalia no to ashi ako kopo alia lalia mopopo umuya nia alia kololea. Ariane shikadere amane no amane na ariana ko kare tapa opo yo no dini dia dini tiri kadori anda apa ko paka hi aka mo yo shikadere ni ari ko bri ko doni ta ko poko to dia shikadere poko to ko paka ta ni ta ra te te ko brio shikut ko po to sina tari na ta dia mo ko ya opa ka li go ka ka ko shikut ko ni ta ko lo ti alin ki ni si ni opo o mi aku ki ka ka di ki ka aku umuku ku ke ku baka kare ala kini dia ta la ka to ko po to ti to bo ta pa dia no to ne ma pa mo po ko to ma pa ya ni ta re na re de chi ke to shku ko ti ko ka ki ku ya ta ya ta ti shku to pa pi to apush ati ash ash ku to ash ku ama oko kuja tu aka aleka ni dia tu kupu tu ke kapakati ke ala kadina ka ani ati dale tu ko tu dia pekunu si tu ko apa go no no ori apa ali o si dia ori ko tu ya si dia ko tu si dia poko porque dia tadi anda tadi tu ko do dia pap ko kapaka ke ni tadi ni tu ko Shale no le mama mia nia inia ho loco 啊，你弟，都包括哦，你是你都的，和的啦，皮克就吃的啦，都嘛巴卡，哎呀，弄那嘛你是的弄，por yo no te ale, ni si dia te regala, tía. Kuchukutu poko kuti ni la maka ni aka Shukata pa ada ya. Kili ada ida tina ta di da do bana da ni di do do di ra bri ara ka ni da ni di do bani ne po shin di pa ka pa ki la ni ta di do bani ko do chukutu ara pa. One more. Tia to tia da kama ko du shani da ko pa kin na to ni na ka ma pa ni te shi ka ko pa ka kia da le na ka a le ai ko a la ka le ti ni ti de do ba ko da ti ne shani ni ti ga na do ba ni te ra to ka ti da re a ta ra ti shi ga da re ai ala po shi ania papa ki to. Okay, come out of that when you're ready.
Well, thank you, Ken. I always feel relaxed after these. So there's something that it's working on. It's more the energy than anything that I think you kind of sense.
Yeah, but you're also kind of in the field already, just so you're aware. Like you're already synced at least energetically, right? So most of that was for your audience. And there were a couple of new ones that had come through, that really deep voice was a little fresh and new. And again, your audience is what kind of dictates what needs to show up for them. The biggest difference here, with me, at least I think, I don't follow anybody else. I don't follow the news. I couldn't tell you anything happening in the world. I couldn't tell you anything happening with any other spiritual practitioner in the world. I don't know what they're doing. I'm completely
Hmm.
tuned off of everything. But when they come through, they're coming through specifically for you, meaning that when I show up and I'm going to do like an 8-8 activation, as an example, right? Or I'm going to get some, heart healing or something, right? You're getting typically a stream of consciousness that may or may not be in tune with what you're looking for. Okay. This isn't how this works with me. Everything that comes through has been tuned and requested by your team, and that's why they show up. So think of it like that.
Yeah. Interesting. And when you go to conferences, do you hear things that resonate with you that other people are doing, or you really just try consciously not to pay attention to what others are doing?
But I don't try to consciously not pay attention or pay attention, right? It's just if it's in a conversation, it's in a conversation.
Yeah.
But I never, I don't know if this is a bonus or a fallacy or whatever, but I don't ask questions, even of my team.
Hmm.
Like I get information, and I don't go into more depth. Well, tell me about that thing, Ian. And now that we're there, tell me what if you go to the left a little, what happens there? I don't do any of that. And it's interesting because as my former profession, I was investigating everything. Where did
Mhm.
the bad guys come from? This is computer stuff now, right? How did they attack your computer? How did they get in? What can I do to create software to prevent that from happening and future stuff? So it was always constant intelligence on how do I track and remove the bad guys or prevent the bad guys. And now that I'm in this realm, it's like I just don't have a single question to ask. It's really, really opposite. It's strange for me.
All
So
right. So to end this, let's just ask you, have you asked your team what needs to be said here at the end for people moving forward?
embrace the opportunity you've been given. And we're not necessarily meaning the opportunity you've been given on this call, the opportunity you've been given for your entire experience here. Stop fighting it. Start loving it. Start moving into the authentic you. No matter how bumpy that road is to get you to that paved golden road, if that's what you want to call it, go through those changes, right? Move into the version of you that's waiting for you. You are here for that. Don't stop. Why stop?
Oh, I love it. Be
Mm,
your authentic self and
Be
experience
authentic self.
bliss. Well,
The
thank you
the
so
one
much,
yep.
Ken, for
The one thing I do want to share with your guest is that if they're interested in a group session, and I recommend the group session, the links there above me, kenlloydofficial.com events. If you use the coupon code HEALING, HEALING, all capital, there's 25% off. And the same thing goes for private sessions. So just sharing it with you guys if you're interested.
and I'll put all those links below in the show notes. So thank you, Ken.